3 months into the year, Texas athletics is heating up. Men's basketball looks to build momentum before the SEC tournament here in Nashville, while the women head to Greenville as the 3 seed. On the diamond, baseball and softball remain red hot, and on the ice, playoff implications are looming as the regular season winds down. All that and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome back to College Press Box. I'm Ayan Urbach and hosting with Giorgy Ruiz tonight. Before we get started, we want to remind you that College Press Box is brought to you by Cab Metro, Austin's transit system. We connect you to work, school, play, and everywhere in between. Plan your ride to this weekend's game at cabmetro.org. Over 12,000 fans packed the crowd Saturday night in Reed Arena inside College Station for senior night in the second game of this two-part thriller against their in-state rival, the Texas Longhorns. But the sights and sounds of this boisterous Aggie faithful did not spoil Sean Miller's squad mission to win and claim a spot inside the big dance. Take a look. The Horns looked to bounce back after a tough home loss to Florida Wednesday night inside the Moody Center, and bounce back they did with the opening game starting red hot with an impressive 9-foot floater by top scorer Daylon Swain to get the Horns on the board. That was then followed by an impressive and one lay by 6-year man Trayvon Mark, igniting a 10-3 Horns run as he made the free throw. The Horns then made a statement on the inside defensive side with senior guard Kendall Weaver swiping away an Aggie turnover, dribbling down the court to get the high-flying roller. A shot and one, coming down hard. He was okay though. A&M did go for a 14-4 run late in the first half to get the game's first lead change via the help of Rashawn Agee driving to the glass. However, Daylon Swain kept coming back with a 3 of his own to keep the Longhorns close. Swain had 11 in the first half. However, Rashawn Agee again got the last word for the Aggies, sizing up Nick Cody to get the tough bounce high up the glass to give A&M the lead heading into half. That didn't hold up long as Matas Vokatitis, who left quiet in the first half, put the Horns back up front with a two-handed putback dunk after a missed layup by Jordan Pope. Things still remain tight for both teams until Simeon Wilcher gets the friendly bounce for the 3. The Horns finished 7-21 from deep. The Horns then scored high in transition with a 1-2 punch from Swain to Mark, high inside with the left hook finish, but the game was still far from over as former Big 12 foe Pop Isaacs cans a triple followed by a statement dunk from McGee to put this game back to a 2-point game. The Horns did respond by an impressive sidestep 3 from a Cam Heide and contested corner 3 from Mark. In the end, the game was sealed by a Jordan Pope free throw, giving Texas the 76-70 win, their first away win in College Station since 2012. The win handed Sean Miller's side their 7th Quad 1 victory, putting them tied for 7th in the SEC race. But if you want to talk more about winning success, let's move on to the program's women's side. Our very own Parker Keston was at the Moody Center covering the Lady Longhorns' dominant last regular season win before heading to Greenville, South Carolina. Let's take a look.
Moody Center was electric tonight as the number 4 Texas Longhorns took on the number 23 Georgia Bulldogs in the last home game of the regular season with a final score of 79-50. Despite an incredibly strong start for the Texas offense, with a 33-point lead in the first half and holding the Georgia Bulldogs to only 7 points in the second quarter, the second half didn't necessarily tell the same story. Let's take a look at the highlights. Georgia's number 0, Trinity Turner, battles it out with Texas' number 3, Rory Harmon, on defense before she passes it to teammate Riley Turkoff, who throws it into the basket for 3. The Longhorns pass the ball around the court and avoid the Georgia defense before number 25, Brea Cunningham, lays it up into the basket. Georgia's Turner misses a shot in the basket, turning the ball over to the Longhorns. Harmon drives down the court. Georgia had 24 turnovers to Texas' 13, and only 5 steals to the Longhorns' 14. Harmon shoots and scores. The Bulldogs pass the ball and shoot a corner for 3. Georgia's Jocelyn Faison throws the ball over the hoop. Texas number 21, Ashton Judd, catches the air ball, runs down court, passes to number 7, Jordan Lee, who lays the ball up for 2. Longhorn number 1, Brianna Preston, navigates Georgia defenders and scores in the paint. Looking ahead, the Longhorns will travel to Tuscaloosa on Sunday to take on number 24 Alabama, before heading to Greenville, South Carolina for the SEC tournament. The Longhorns will look to avenge last year's championship loss to South Carolina. For TSTV Sports, this is Parker Keston.
Great coverage, Parker. Now let's send it over to Giorgy with a special guest for more.
Thanks, Aidan. I'm here with Zoe Frigillana to talk more about the Lady Longhorns. Welcome, Zoe, and how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Excited to be back on the show and tackle another week here at UT.
No, of course. So go ahead and tackle this Texas team. Well, when you look at them, do you see a team that will survive a few rounds in March or one that is built to cut down the nets in the Final Four?
Yeah, so when I look at Texas, I see a team that's absolutely built to make a deep March run, Sweet 16, Elite 8 for sure, and it starts with their defense. The Longhorns have consistently held their opponents to low scoring percentages, and with multiple strong shooting teams in the tournament, their defense is going to set them apart. This team is exceptionally strong in rebounding and forcing turnovers, which they translate into points. This is huge because that is how teams create separation without relying purely on offense. And physically, Texas is tough. The Lady Longhorns have remained consistent all throughout the regular season, even with some key players out on injury for a few games. With a full healthy squad and their camaraderie on the court, their dominance is going to play a big part in back-to-back matchups with high-level teams. But cutting down the nets is a different conversation. Where the question comes into play is offensive efficiency late in games. And tight matchups against ranked teams, can they execute when pace slows? Championship teams rank top tier in both defense efficiency and offense efficiency. Texas clearly checks the defensive box. However, if their late game shot production and three-point consistency can hold up under pressure, then yes, they're Final Four quality.
Well, these past couple of games have been a little hard defensively for the Texas Longhorns to the end. But right now, let's get into the individuals. Who is the true X factor for Texas?
Well, when we talk about the X factor for Texas, I'm not necessarily looking at their leading scorer. I'm looking at a player who impacts winning in multiple areas, and that player for Texas is Rory Harmon. Harmon impacts the game in ways that don't just show up in one stat column. She is the true definition of a full court player and leader for this team. Harmon sets the tempo for this team when she is taking care of the basketball and creating efficient looks. Texas' offensive flow is completely different. Her assist averages stand out, and she is one of the best defensive guards in the conference. In March, guard play wins games. Texas needs someone who can handle pressure and make the right reads in the final moments. That's Harmon. And not to mention, in February, she became the first NCAA D1 women's basketball player to accumulate over 1,500 points, over 900 assists, over 600 rebounds, and over 350 steals in her career. I think we can confidently say that Rory Harmon has defined herself as a Longhorn legend, and there is no one that wants it more than her. She's going to be greatly missed by Texas fans, her teammates, and especially head coach Vic Schaefer. And if it were up to me, number 3 will no longer be worn after her.
We do hear that conversation a lot to retire her number, so we'll definitely see Ann going on to her 5th year. But, just what matchup would Texas just not want to see in March to want to cut down that net?
Well, I think we all know where this one is going. If we're talking about the matchup Texas wouldn't want to see in March, it's a team with elite size and efficient offense. Texas thrives on defensive pressure and turning teams over, as I said earlier, but against a disciplined veteran team that can protect the ball and has a high shooting percentage on the front court, that advantage shrinks. The South Carolina Gamecocks and Texas Longhorns have built a growing rivalry with each other since Texas joined the SEC. In last few seasons, the teams have frequently met and learned each other's style of play. The Gamecocks are dangerous, though. Their depth and physical presence are going to be a real testament for the Longhorns, but they've done it before, so I have no doubt in me that they will be able to beat South Carolina again. The most nerve-wracking matchup isn't necessarily the highest seed. It's a team that doesn't turn the ball over, rebounds at a high rate, and can consistently score from the arc and in the paint. These two teams have built a history. Now it's a matter of mental toughness and who wants it more.
No, for sure, and we'll definitely be seeing them in the SEC Championship coming up. But thank you so much for your insight, Zoe. Now, switching over to men's hoops, our very own Kendall Ungar was covering the last week's matchup versus Florida. Let's take a look at her coverage.
When the reigning national champion Florida Gators come to town, a team leading the conference, the Texas Longhorns, needed to be all in, especially with their tournament chances on the bubble. For the first 32 minutes, it was a fair fight. However, the Horns fell apart in that final stretch, and the Gators took advantage of the Longhorns just running out of gas.
Until that final 8 minutes, it really was anybody's game. As they took the lead, we had the lead as well. But they finished the game on a 23-3 run. That's to their credit, and I think that's where my bigger concern is. So it's like at the end, it's not representative of what we did throughout.
As Sean Miller tells his squad, it's March Madness and nobody gets you in except yourself. So for now, the Longhorns will look to their final 3 games of the regular season to make that final resume boost and hopefully make an NCAA tournament appearance. Reporting from Moody Center, I'm Kendall Unger, TSTV Sports.
Great work, Kendall. Now I'm here with TSTV's own Ayan Masud to talk about some men's hoop. Well, how are you doing today, Ayan?
I'm doing pretty good today. It was nice to chirp some Aggies after the big win on Saturday for sure, and I'm excited to be talking some ball with one of my favorite hosts here on College Press Box.
Oh, thank you. And let's just get right into it. Well, Aidan had mentioned earlier that the Horns had a fantastic win against the rivals on Saturday. What do you think was the game changer in that matchup?
There's a lot of options here. Dalen Swain posted a double-double, but wasn't as effective in the second half. Jay Pope dropped 17 points and played almost all 40 minutes. And Mates had a good showing, but not super well. And to me, there's a clear answer here, and it's going to be Tremont Mark. He showed his big game experience, leading Texas with 23 points, 7 of them coming from the free throw line, where he shot 100%. He was calm, cool, and collected, even though he played 33 minutes. Competing against the Aggies' full-court press and aggressive play style would terrify some players, but not the graduate student. Mark stepped up to the plate and was slicing his way through the press. If I played more than 5 minutes against a bottom-tier SEC school, I'd have an asthma attack, let alone the Aggies. It is worth noting that Mark barely contributed to the Horns' fouling issue, adding only 1 personal foul. His discipline was certainly on display against A&M. He took the right shots and made over 50% of them, adding 6 points from beyond the arc in clutch fashion. He recorded a stat in every major category with 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and adding a block and steal to pair with his team-high 23 points and tying his personal season high in points as well. Tremont Mark may be the unk of the squad, but word on the street is that he is the Aggie killer. And it will be interesting to see if A&M and Texas cross paths in the SEC tournament.
I know a lot of people will be willing to have that, and I know that game buzzer beater winner last year definitely read free in my head. Well, Tremont Mark will actually be facing his old school number 20 Arkansas and Texas's other rival, as some people don't know, this Wednesday. And as the Horns hope to add another quad 1 win in the Selection Sunday looms, and the madness is almost here. But first, Texas has to play in the SEC tournament. In your opinion, who makes the best run in the SEC tournament? It's a pretty stacked up matchups we have here.
Well, there's a clear distinction between the top 3 SEC teams, Bama, Florida, and Arkansas, and the middle of the pack SEC teams. Texas is one of those teams and could end up as a higher or lower seed in the SEC tournament, depending on whether they beat Arkansas on the road. But I do not think Texas will be the SEC team to make a run in the SEC tournament. I think the Vanderbilt Commodores will be the team to make their case during the conference tournament. Before dropping their first game of the season to Texas in mid-January, Vandy was on a heater. The win against Alabama cannot be understated. They had a 1-point loss at home against the putrid Oklahoma Sooners, but many of their other losses came against real competition. The Doors roster construction is made for a streaky tournament run, just like we saw early in the season. Tyler Tanner is 5th in the SEC when it comes to scoring, and the team itself is 5th in 3-point percentage. The other Tyler Nickel, is also shooting about 41% from 3-point range, making him a threat defenses will have to shut down. But I think regardless, if you shut down Nickel, Tanner will find a way. Ranked 3rd in the SEC for assists, Tanner has superb court vision, averaging 5.2 assists a game, and also stealing about 2.5 balls a game. This team has something to prove because they want to be in the top tier SEC teams like they were considered before, and the SEC tournament gives them the perfect chance to do so.
No, most definitely. Well, lastly, Ayan, who needs to step up in March for the Longhorns to go on a run in the midst of all this madness?
These 2 players have actually been splitting time recently, and they complement each other in ways that one's strengths is the other's weakness. Camden Heide, the Purdue transfer, and Nick Cody have been splitting more and more time as we get later into the season. Heide's defense has been extremely questionable. His strength is clearly his shooting, as he was known for that coming in as a transfer. Overall, he's sitting at just above 50% in field goals and just below 50% when it comes to 3-point shots. The Longhorns will need to practice some complex offensive plays to get him open looks. Defensively, he needs to step up for sure. While Cody is relatively inexperienced compared to Heidi, he has seen an increase in minutes since being benched early in the season. He still looks a little confused on the court, but I think that just comes with more consistent playing time, especially for a player like Cody. He will never be a sharpshooter like Heidi, but he does need to improve on the end. Cody was only 0 for 4 against A&M in 18 minutes. With that many minutes, you have to add some points to the score sheet, especially in that scenario against a rival. He's a lengthy combo guard which gives him an advantage, and he can create turnovers and force blocks, which he had 3 of them against A&M. His rebounding has also improved. I'm just looking for more consistency when it comes to points.
No, and 100%, and we're getting ready to follow them as well with me and actually my other co-host, Aidan, going to be on the scene in Nashville to definitely bring it up. Well, thank you so much again for that amazing analysis and for just being back on the show, Ayan. Now back to you at the desk, Aidan.
Solid work, Zoe and Ayan. When we come back, we will take a look into Texas baseball and softball to recap their weekend tournaments, so stay tuned, you don't want to miss it.
Welcome back to College Press Box. The Horn's been mining on the diamonds, and we're going to give you the insight. Let's send it over to Aidan, who's with our next analyst.
Thanks, Giorgy. I'm with Kate Amon to talk more about Texas baseball and softball. Welcome to the show, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Aidan. Glad to be back on the show talking about these two teams.
Absolutely. Great to hear both of these two programs had incredible weekends with softball at a home sweeping the series at the Longhorn Invitational, and baseball doing the same thing over in Houston at the Bruce Bowl Classic. But let's start off with baseball. Last Tuesday, you gave us a rundown of how they were doing. Did the Longhorns play like you expected, or did they exceed your expectations?
I will say this team did extremely well at this tournament and did succeed my expectations in a great way. Last Tuesday, I said the hardest game for the Longhorns this weekend was going to be the first game of the series against Coastal Carolina, last year's runner-up in the NCAA championship. But this number 3 ranked Longhorn team blew number 9 ranked Coastal Carolina out of the water. Texas showed the world that their lineup is so deep that their 8-hole hitter can hit a 2-run home run in a game. Timo Barrera hit a solo shot in the 4th inning and a 2-run homer in the 8th. Both of these moonshots landed in the iconic left field Crawford boxes at Dyken Park. Right after Becerra's second homer in the bottom of the 8th, designated hitter Ashton Larson went back-to-back with him hitting a homer, the first one as a Longhorn. Texas Game 1 ace Ruger Rijoas recorded 11 strikeouts with only allowing 1 hit and 1 walk among 5 innings. Texas won this game 8-1 at the start of the Classic with a banger. On Saturday against Baylor, the Longhorns scored 5 runs in just 3 innings against the Bears. Freshman Anthony Pack Jr. is up to bat with bases loaded and hits a single which turned into a triple on an error, clearing the bases to make the score 3-0. The Longhorns took this win, winning 5-2, and gave head coach Schlossnagel his 1,000th career win. The Longhorns rounded out this Classic on Sunday, defeating Ohio State 10-3, where 7 out of their 10 runs happened in the 3rd inning. Ethan Mendoza gets an RBI with the bases loaded that scored the first run of the game. Adrian Rodriguez then hits a double, which brings the score of the game to 5-0. Timo Becerra then hits an absolute moonshot to the Crawford boxes for the 2nd time of the series, extending the lead 7-0 in the 3rd inning. How can you not be romantic about baseball? Texas won this Classic over UTSA, even though they were undefeated as well. Texas had a plus 17 run differential to take this series win.
Yeah, what a weekend it was for the Texas baseball Longhorns. And every weekend, this baseball team is showing out time and time again. And we can say the exact same thing about the softball program. The softball team was able to run rule every team they played in this tournament. Tell me about this weekend, Kate.
Yes, Aidan, this softball team run-ruled Houston 9-1 on Friday. Run-ruled St. Bonaventure 12-2, on a doubleheader with Prairie View A&M run-ruling them 8-0, then closing out this invitational on a Sunday, run-ruling Garnet Ward 8-0 as well. To start off with Houston, the Lady Longhorns had 9 hits. Katie Stewart with a 2-run homer, Reese Atwood and Vivian Martinez were both 2 and 3, and the pair both drove in 2 RBIs. On Saturday afternoon, this was a game of home runs with Reese Atwood, Katie Stewart, Victoria Hunter, and Alyssa Sneed all homered in this game. But the MVP of this home run crew was freshman Alyssa Sneed, whose first home run as a Longhorn was a grand slam. Then honorable mention was Katie Stewart with hitting her home run so hard and so far it left a dent in the apartment building out in left field. Texas beat the Bonnies and had to play Prairie View A&M right afterwards, and having to play a doubleheader did not stop them in the slightest. Pitching-wise, sophomore right-handed pitcher Cabrina Salmon and freshman right-handed pitcher Hannah Wells combined for a fantastic 5-hit shutout. While these Longhorns destroyed the ball easily, are we even surprised? Highlight was freshman JC Nichols went 2-2 with a double and 2 runs scored. Rounding out this invitational on Sunday was the best game of the series, just because Tegan Cavan gets her second no-hitter of her career. Cavan starts with hitting her first batter in the top of the first, but then delivers with retiring 18 straight batters. Junior Kaden Henry had her game to shine with delivering a 3-run home run in the 4th.
As you mentioned, this softball team is absolutely on a tear to whoever they play, but but both softball and baseball are going to be unstoppable forces in the near future going into this conference, which is finally here for softball, going to have to wait 10 more days until baseball play Ole Miss, but none of these teams less what they felt like never-ending weekends of a tournament. After an invitational, after a classic for these Lady Longhorns, they finally start conference play this coming Friday, playing South Carolina. Kate, how have all these invitationals and classics prepare this softball team for conference play?
I would say all these classic invitationals and tournaments have showed Texas as a powerhouse team. From Reese Atwood hitting bombs, Tegan Cavan performing 2 no-hitters this season so far, and how much of an asset freshmen can be to the team as Alyssa Sneed. Though Texas hasn't played insanely hard teams, that doesn't diminish from the point that the Longhorns team is the same powerhouse team that won the NCAA championship last season. This team isn't going on cakewalk when playing a team like St. Bonaventure. No, they're hitting grand slams and not stopping after they already meet the minimum to consider the game as a run rule. South Carolina snuck into the rankings sitting at the number 22 spot. They have hard hitters such as Ariana Rhodey with a slugging percentage of .673 and 6 home runs so far in the season. Pitcher Jory Hurd with a 1.24 ERA. This is going to be a fun, competitive game for the Longhorns, which they haven't had since they played Washington and Nebraska early in the season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare against South Carolina entering this first SEC competition for the Lady Longhorns. That will do it from here, Giorgy. Thanks for joining us. Kate, back to you.
Thank you so much, Kate and Aidan. And when College Press Box returns, we'll talk about some of our members' favorite time of the year. So NHL is back, so make sure to stay with us.
Welcome back to College Press Box. As the NHL regular season winds down, the Stanley Cup playoff picture is starting to look more clear with division races and wildcard spots on the line. Here's Giorgy with more.
Thanks again, Aidan. I'm here with Colin Flickinger to talk about what's going on in the ice. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Giorgy. How are you?
I'm actually doing pretty well. Well, all NHL teams now have less than 25 games remaining until the end of the season. And how is the playoff picture looking in the Eastern Conference?
Well, the NHL Eastern Conference this year is particularly strong. The current Wild Card 2 team, Boston Bruins, are on pace for a 99-point season by the time they start their game today. For reference, last year's Wild Card 2 team in the East, the Canadiens, finished the season with only 91 points. The only teams outside of the playoff spot that I can see challenging the Bruins for the last spot in the playoffs are the Washington Capitals and the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Capitals are in a pretty tough spot where they don't have many assets they'd be willing to give away at the deadline to improve their team, but also don't want to tank their future by going all in right now before Alex Ovechkin retires. I don't think they have the offensive firepower to get into the playoffs as is. As for the Blue Jackets, they are also a team with a lot of cap space that could theoretically make a move at the deadline, but I don't think it makes sense with their current roster construction and their timeline. There's simply too many holes to fill with not enough resources to do so. I don't see either team overtaking the Bruins for the final spot in the playoffs. The Bruins this season have been a really solid team, and their forward group has been particularly good, getting goals from all four of their lines, and Jeremy Swayman, their goalie, has over 17 goals saved above expected. I think the Eastern Conference standings end the season where they are today.
Actually, it's a pretty bold, not a bold assumption, but just with everything, especially with the Bruins just being so powerful. But just moving on over to the West, what is the situation over there? But more specifically, what's going on with the Pacific Division?
Well, outside of the Central Division top three, it is a wild Western shootout in the East or the Western Conference. The top teams in the Pacific could all end up on the outside looking in of the playoff race if the games don't go their way. Vegas currently sits atop the division with 70 points, but the Kraken, Kings, and Sharks, who are all currently outside of the playoff picture, are potentially going to be leapfrogging them by the end of the season. There's only an 8-point difference between the Sharks and the Golden Knights, who are currently leading the division. The Kings lost Kevin Fiala for the season during the Olympics after a freak injury, but they did bring in Artemi Panarin before the tournament started, so they still do have a solid chance to make the playoffs if he measures well. The Oilers have crippling goaltending and defensive problems, which will be hard to solve, despite the fact that they gave up a sizable package for goaltender Tristan Jarry from the Pittsburgh Penguins. The red-hot Anaheim Ducks are probably in the best spot for all Pacific teams, but a couple more injuries could derail a season that has already been marked by the injury bug. Add into the frame a hungry San Jose Sharks team with a Macklin Celebrini who just lost out on gold in the Olympics, a Seattle Kraken team looking to clinch their first ever playoff berth, and a Central Division Utah Mammoth team smelling blood in the water in the wildcard hunt. You can see just how many different ways this playoff race can go. But my prediction is this: the Ducks will continue their hot streak and win the Pacific Division over Vegas and Seattle in the 2 and 3 in the division. And the wildcard spots will go to the San Jose Sharks and the Utah Mammoth, with last year's Cup finalist Edmonton Oilers succumbing to their defensive and goaltending woes and missing the playoffs entirely.
Kind of ironic that the ones that are the most powerful are called the Ducks. Well, with half a week remaining until the trade deadline on Friday, which teams are most likely to make a move at the deadline, and who is likely to find a new home come Friday afternoon?
Well, first, let's talk sellers. I think the St. Louis Blues, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Calgary Flames all need to hold a fire sale and sell off whatever assets they can to get whatever trades they can back. The Canucks hold some good forward depth in Brock Besser and Teddy Bluger, who could fetch a decent haul at the deadline. Tyler Myers, the right-handed defenseman, could also be a potential piece to move to a playoff team needing a right-handed D-man. The St. Louis Blues have a couple of really good pieces that they could get a large return for, namely Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, both of which have long-term deals and would be a welcome addition to whatever team they join post-deadline. The Flames also have a couple of key pieces that they can move at the deadline, mainly Nazem Kadri and current captain Mikael Backlund could be used to jumpstart their rebuild. Both players could be used by playoff teams looking to round out their forward group going into the playoffs. I think the Red Wings, for buyers, should be the team to watch. They need to grab a winger to bolster their forward depth. In this position, I do like Jordan Kyrou from the Blues. They could also be looking at a potential right-handed D-man. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade for Tyler Myers, but I would personally caution against that move. Lastly, I think we will see the Dallas Stars trade for a right-handed D-man. In my eyes, Rasmus Ristolainen from the Flyers could be the guy for them, but I'm just unsure. And there are many things that could change between now and the trade deadline on Friday at 3 Eastern, 2 Central. I will personally be glued to my screen all week, but you never know what can happen.
Well, thank you so much for that analysis, and good luck. So I'm just going to send it back over to you, Aidan.
Thank you, Giorgy and Colin. When we return to College Press Box, we'll take a look at this past week in Longhorn sports and see what's ahead. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Now let's take a look at this past week in Longhorn sports. Tegan Cavan, as we mentioned earlier, tossed her second career no-hitter to lead the number 3 Texas to a run roll win over Incarnate Word. The sophomore right-hander dominated from the first pitch, commanding the strike zone and keeping IEW off the balance all afternoon. The Longhorns provided an early run support and continued to apply pressure at the plate, and with this victory, Texas maintains its momentum as one of the nation's top teams.
History was made Saturday night in the world of Texas baseball as Longhorn skipper Jim Schlossnagle recorded his 1,000th career win in his extensive managerial career. Schlossnagle started his would-be Hall of Fame career 24 years ago, coaching at UNLV before moving to TCU, where he led the Frogs to 5 World Series appearances across an 18-year stint in Fort Worth, before moving on to A&M and now, of course, UT. In addition to this major milestone, the Longhorns improved to 11-0 in their quest back to Omaha, a place they haven't been in 4 years. In 24 years, if you really want to feel young, folks, bring up Coach Schloss's tenure.
Well, and lastly, Texas track and field secured 2 podium finishes on the final day of the SEC Indoor Championships in College Station. Kendrick Smallwood and Kelsey Daniel each earned bronze medals to cap a strong weekend for the Longhorns. Their performance provided key points against tough SEC competition and built momentum heading into the next stretch of the indoor season.
Now let's take a look at what's happening across the week in Longhorn sports. So tonight, Texas baseball looks to take on Houston Christian, with first pitch kicking off at 6:30 p.m. Central on SEC Network. Now on Wednesday, men's basketball takes on Arkansas at 6 p.m. on ESPN2. Now on Friday through Sunday, a 3-game series, Texas baseball takes on USC Upstate here on the SEC Network. And then softball takes on South Carolina Gamecocks for their first SEC opener and on the SEC Network as well. Then on Friday, women's basketball takes on SEC tournament quarterfinals on 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and then Saturday on the 7th, Texas men's basketball versus Oklahoma on 7:30 p.m. Eastern as well on SEC Network.
And that concludes this week's edition of College Press Box. Thank you for tuning in, and always please make sure to tune in to our other shows this week, including College Crossfire at Wednesdays airing at 9 p.m. and the One and Know Sports Show on Fridays at 11 a.m. Also, we invite you to follow our coverage on Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube at the handle TSTV Sports. Thank you to our executive producer, Kendall Unger, and all our reporters in TSTV Sports. I'm Giorgy Ruiz. He's Aidan Urbach. We're sending all our love to the Austin community, and stay safe out there. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.